Hello once again. It is now day 15 of our reading through 1st and 2nd Samuel. Our last full day of reading through 1st Samuel, as on Monday we will transition reading the final chapter of 1st Samuel and the initial chapter of 2nd Samuel. So today we are in chapters 29 and 30. By way of a recap, there was an update on David and an update on Saul in our previous reading. David had gone to the Philistines, and he was under protection, under the arch enemy of the Hebrews. He had some freedom of movement. He was able to take care of his own agenda and that of his men. Then we checked on Saul, and Saul was upset. Well, first, let me backtrack. David had aligned with the Philistines and was going to serve as protection to the king while they went to battle with Israel, and was wondering what's wrong with David. How is this going to work out? All right, so as the Philistines, with David in their corner, going to fight the Hebrews, naturally, Saul was stressed. He goes to the medium, the witch of Endor, to conjure up the spirit of Samuel. Samuel says, I'm sorry to tell you, but you and your sons are gonna die in this battle. And so, if Saul was looking for a remedy to his stress, he looked in the wrong place there in Endor. All right, now in chapter number 29. After yesterday's reading, some of us might have been worried about our favorite guy here, the primary character, David. Has he compromised? He's in amongst the Philistines. Now he and his men are going to march in war with the Philistines. You can't possibly be considering this, David. I mean, even if you don't inflict any direct harm on your own people. I mean, come on, you're gonna ruin your political career here. You don't need this. Well, it turns out things are going to work out just fine for David. Well, as far as that's concerned, the Philistines, some of them are a bit nervous about going into battle with David. What if he turns on us? What if he's working as a double agent? These aren't things you want to worry about in battle. You want to be confident with those who you are fighting alongside of. So they're going to tell the king, get rid of David. And so the king is going to go to David and give a lot of affirmation to David. I mean, have we noticed this? That, as Saul is against David, this king of the Philistines now is going to appear to be much more perceptive, maybe even kinder than Saul. Again, this is another strike against Saul. He's the king that's really perceived badly. We're supposed to perceive him badly. And maybe we're supposed to scratch our heads and say, look at Achish here, the king. He was really nice to David and said great things. Everybody appreciates David. And this king, he sees David is honest, David is loyal, David is good, he's a good leader. Why doesn't Saul see any of this? So David's going to go and return back to the Philistines, back to the land, rather than support the Philistines in their battle against Israel. However, in chapter 30, things have gotten very testy. Their women and children of David and his 600 men, they were left behind in Ziklag, while David and his men went out to fight with the Philistines or support the Philistines. Well, here come the Amalekites. And they're not the primary bad guys in 1 Samuel, but they are your secondary bad guys. They're going to come. The town is vulnerable. David and the 600 men are gone. They're going to burn up this town. and they're going to take the women and the children with them. They don't hurt anybody, they don't kill anyone, but they're going to carry them off. And so David and his 600 men, they return. The city is burned. The wives and children are gone. It's a bad day. They're going to weep, and they're going to mourn. This is horrible. David's wives have been taken. David was very upset. The men were thinking about stoning David, as each man grieved. This is not good. Once again, his political capital is in jeopardy here. He just avoided messing up with the Philistines against Israel, but now he's been raiding other villages, and now his village has been raided. They're thinking of stoning David. What's going to happen? Well, notice this in verse 6 of chapter 30. Every man was grieving bitterly, but David was getting strength from God. This does not mean David wasn't grieving, nor is this ever supposed to speak to Christians today suggesting that we shouldn't grieve, but we should just simply draw strength from God. This is none of that. This is literary. This is saying his men were grieving, but David was moving in a direction to solve this problem. David is a leader. He can't just grieve. He's got to draw strength and do something about this. David, once again, this is highlighting David's fine leadership abilities. So he's going to go summons the priest, Abiathar, the son of Ahimelech, who was murdered by Saul, and ask for the ephod, the priestly garment. David's going to use this, I suppose, as a tangible symbol while he's praying to God, asking what to do, and God says, go out and get your families back. And he's going to take his 600 men, but 2 of them are exhausted. So they're going to stay back, and they're kind of guard the camp. David and his men, they're going to catch up to this party that had raided them, and they're going to get their revenge. They're going to fight them. They're going to defeat them, and all is going to go well. It seems, except when they returned their wives, their sons and daughters, they took spoil as well. They took the possessions of this raiding party. Well, then there's going to be a division. Well, only 400 of the 600 men actually went to fight. 2 of them were too tired and stayed to guard the base. The 400 said, we don't want to share this. But David says, we're going to share it with everybody. They're part of our group. They've been with us all this time. We're not going to hold it against them. And that's pretty much how the chapter ends. And so that became part of legal policy going forward, that they were going to, all of them, share this. And that became something that's part of the army, it seems, in Israel from that time on. So Monday we'll close this chapter and close this book and open up the next book, 2 Samuel. However, just some synthesis here in my final remarks before I shut this video down. Some highlights of this 1 Samuel. Remember, this is in the genre of history. It's narrative, or what we casually say, this is storytelling. This isn't a part of the Bible, say, such as the New Testament epistles, where there's an exact instruction given for Christian living as we read this as Christians today. Sure, there's certain principles here that are going on that are building up to a larger whole. However, what we are reading is the telling of the Hebrew story, which we have engrafted and which fits into our story. This entire first book of Samuel has been working to lay the foundation of David here. I mean, can we see it now? to tell the story of David. They weren't going to start with David's birth. It's not like that in this. You've got to lay out the social political foundation of it all. That's what's happening here. And so to tell this for the social political foundation, it started off in the first chapter with Samuel, who was the primary judge, and during the era of the judges, you had the priest, the Ark of the Covenant, the war there with the Philistines, the people wanting a king, the rise of Saul, the fall of Saul, and now the rise of David. This is all the backdrop of, again, social political dynamics of David's rise, and that's the story. And so what really comes into play is what we will read in 2 Samuel and see what David does. He's been validated in 1 Samuel. What's he going to do in 2 Samuel that is going to contribute to our story as Christians? Because when we go into the Gospels, we hear them referring to Jesus as son of David. We see Jesus, David here is a very significant personality. We've looked in this book and seen some backdrop to even the book of Genesis, the older serving the younger, the amongst brothers and things of that nature. Okay, so I'll just shut it down here, and we'll look forward to this, the sequel that we will open up and examine next time. And so you got to be wondering at this point, Saul let us down. Is David going to let us down? All right. Goodbye, everyone.